Okay, good evening, everybody. How are we all doing? Hope you're all good. Hope you're all well. Obviously, I'm looking straight over. Try and make sure that you guys can actually hear me okay. The mic's working fine. The cameras are all on. And everything along that sort. I bit my tongue tonight, and it did not stop bleeding for about an hour. So we will see how well I continue without a lisp developing. But yeah, it was an absolute doozy. Anyway, what is it we're going to talk about today? Well, you probably saw from the title screen. I want to have a quick chat with everybody about airdrops. As some of you know, I am involved in a couple of airdrops at the moment, and that's not necessarily what it is that I'm wanting to talk about. I'm just talking really about the influx of airdrops that are currently coming into the community and perhaps some of my thoughts on where that may go, both good and bad. As always, we are going to touch on a little bit of news. Been a bit of a quiet week for news, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, when we get to BTC price analysis, it's done nothing for the last few weeks. We all look at it, daily's not moved, 4 hour, I feel like I'm just poking it with a stick. There is some movement on the degen timeframes, but it's not really moving. But that doesn't mean that price action across the board hasn't moved, and actually, one of our favorite tokens at the moment, BitTensor, has pulled another rabbit out of the hat and is continuing to climb. So we'll have a look at that, where that's going. We'll have a look at things like Ethereum. There's an interesting development with Ethereum at the moment. And of course, if you have any in particular you want me to have a look at, then I will go through those as well. But without any further ado, let's just jump into the main page. So I don't know why that green line's on there, so let's get rid of that for starters. But what we're seeing here is a bit of BTC. And I mean, I'll upload the screen up so we can see it. We're talking about this little patch here has been the last week. And we've effectively ranged from anywhere around about 42,500 to about, I was going to say 43,500. So really just sort of $1,000 range over the last week. And I'd say every day we fluctuate between those two prices. It's just moving up and down as if it's just waiting for something to go on. Now, I think what that green line was showing that sort of 43,000 to 44,000 has been a rejection point in the fairly recent past. So maybe that is what's holding us down, but at the same time, 42,000 to 42,500 has actually shown some pretty strong support in the recent past. So you can kind of see why we are building in between those two. As I say, we'll dive into some of those timeframes a little bit later on. The dollar continues its uptick. We're now at 104, and it is continuing to climb. I'm not going to talk about it today, but feel free to have a look. We did actually have the Chinese stock market stop yesterday. I think it hit an 8% drop, and so that triggered it to stop. Whether or not that's helped the dollar rise, as people are getting a bit concerned, I'm not too sure. But similarly, the S&P is just continuing its rip up north. I think it's getting close to 5,000 at the moment. We're looking at Ethereum. Ethereum's had a fairly strong day today. It's climbing up. It is running into a little bit of resistance around about 2,390. Sorry, I was spitting that out there. But if we just blow this one up before we go and have a look at it later on, there is some form of, it's caterpilling up along this line here. It's been doing quite well over that period that we potentially have been stalling and ranging on Bitcoin. Ethereum has been showing a little bit of strength. There's kind of a weird double bottom that's kind of formed there with a neckline in and around where the price is at the moment. So what I would say is all eyes on how this candle can close, whether or not we're going to close in and around that 2,400 level. But looking strong with 4 hours to go. And then, yeah, BitTensor just doing its thing. So we had, a fairly strong rise, which, as I've spoken about several times, I missed out on getting in right at the bottom of that because I was greedy. We've had a slight pullback after we got to about 480. It pulled back to low 400s. But then last couple of days, again, we've seen that strong rise. It's only on the daily at the moment. We are actually experiencing a little bit of pullback on the lower time frames right now. That's not necessarily unexpected. And when we're going to have a look at how it's performing against some of the other metrics, I think we'll see that, yeah, we might get a bit of a cooling off on some of the smaller time frames. But the fact that we're in price discovery, the fact that Bitcoin's doing nothing really, and the fact this is starting to pick up a bit of momentum, I wouldn't be surprised to see that price potentially go further. So we'll have a look at where it may go. And where has tell you what I've gone and lost. Hopefully I can find it. Sorry there. Just looking at the other screen because my other web page has just closed down. So I just need to open that up. Just bear with me. Always interesting when that happens. Hopefully we are still live. It does look like we're still good. Okay. We are still there. Sorry about that. Just always need that left screen with some other information, and it's still there. Okay, right. I'd say we'll go through some of that other stuff a little bit later on. Let's just jump into some of the news. Right, first thing is good old Genesis. So Genesis, owned by DCG, they have nearly $1.4 billion worth in the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which, as we know, has been converted into a spot ETF. And as we also know, Grayscale has been selling nearly 100,000 Bitcoin since the ETF have come about. They are still moving, Bitcoin even today, only a mere 1,500, so hardly worth talking about. But this article is talking the fact that actually Genesis are looking to try and sell $1.6 billion in Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think it is 1.4 billion worth of Bitcoins, or the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. And obviously the speculation, a bit like what happened with the price dropping after the ETF announcement, that was blamed on FTX selling their Grayscale Bitcoin trusts. And again, it's a sort of similar amount. Actually, I think it was less. I think it was about 600 million, wasn't it? When we worked out how much it was in terms of Bitcoin. And so the concern is that if this is approved, and it does need to be approved, it has been put before a judge for approval, so we just need to wait for that, that there could be a considerable amount of selling pressure coming forward. Now, we've talked about this for the last couple of weeks. If the likes of BlackRock et al. Are still hungry and still looking to purchase Bitcoin, then I can see this quite easily being eaten up, despite over 150,000 Bitcoin leaving Grayscale. 125,000 Bitcoin. We saw over a similar period that the ETFs had already purchased 150,000. So we are still, net positive in terms of Bitcoin purchases from that sale, and there's no reason at the moment to necessarily think that wouldn't be the case. Now, whether or not that is enough to hold up the price, we'll have to wait and see. There are other metrics in place to including miners potentially sending Bitcoin to exchanges, for them looking to to offload some as well. So we'll have to wait and see. But this one sort of landed yesterday, something that has been talked about as potentially giving a decent amount of selling pressure, which 1.6 billion, if that is dropped on the market in one go, would certainly cause that. But we've also got to remember that it hasn't been approved to be sold yet. So this is just something for us to watch and be aware of. Next article, good old Solana. I mean, Solana has been riding quite a bit of hype recently. It hasn't had many network failures in the recent past. It's done very well off the airdrop narrative that's currently going on at the moment. And it's just generally just continued to grow, being one of the strongest growers since October. And, just putting a stellar, another crypto there, but it has been putting in a very good performance. However, reality came back, and maybe not from a TA point of view, but certainly from a fundamental point of view, because the Solana network experienced another major outage today. And it said that it went out at 10:22 UTC. It didn't come back on until mid-afternoon. I think it was out for around about 5 hours, which not particularly great. And this is something that we saw quite a lot towards the end of the bull market, but certainly in the bear market for Solana, is it was repeatedly always going down. And I mentioned, may not have affected things TA, because you would have hardly thought that there was an outage at all if you just solely looked at the price. But looking at this from a fundamental point of view, questions really do need to be asked is, how trustworthy can Solana be for future developers, for future projects to actually want to work off it, if they can't guarantee that the network is always going to be operational? Now, a network going down every so often, fair enough, but this now unfortunately has a rather disturbing legacy of continually going down. And as I said earlier, it has been a while since it has been down. I think people may have forgotten how frail it may have been, but things like this are going to bring that back into people's mindset. So from a price point of view, hardly any effect at all. It is now back up and running, and they have been able to recover it. But I just wonder if we start to see more of these, how that may impact. And Solana, what's that, 4th, 5th biggest token at the moment, 3rd after if you take out some of the stables. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame for it, but that's where we are. It goes into some detail in this argument in this article, about exactly what went wrong. Doesn't mean anything to me. Okay, let's have a look at some of the other ones. I want to talk privacy coins because Monero and multi-chain have seen some significant drops in their price today because Binance has finally decided to delist them. They have, they've got their new CEO now, and people are saying he's been bought by the WAF and all of that kind of stuff, or the WEF, whatever you want to pronounce it. And we know that they're not a fan of privacy things. We know things like Tornado Cash were targeted quite aggressively last year, and it looks like that is continuing. And Binance has finally, the largest exchange in the world, has finally decided that they no longer want to deal with Monero or multi-chain. Now, previously, it used to be geo-located as to where it was. So in the UK, I don't think we've been able to buy Monero off major exchanges for quite some time. But we're starting to see that now, and it does seem that actually exchanges are giving up. Now, it's only Binance at the moment, and maybe others will follow. But as we look at the charts in a moment, you'll see that the price has affected it across all exchanges. Where do I really sit with Monero? I mean, back in the day, I suppose it really did serve a purpose, a way of, I don't want to say washing because that has some negative connotations to it, but certainly of just, providing that extra level of privacy to any of your transactions. And maybe now where we're going and how privacy tokens have evolved, that actually this may be a bit of a dinosaur. But my biggest worry ultimately is when this crypto came out, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, however long ago it was, longer actually, we were sort of riding on the wave of cryptocurrency, sticking it to the institutions, we're all decentralized, we're all gonna go our way. But it just actually goes to show that if these centralized authorities really want something to be done, there are ways in which they may be able to restrict your favorite your favorite crypto, and they have put a stranglehold on the entire kind of sector of this sole privacy token. I'm not talking about privacy, a crypto project that happens to have a privacy element within it. I'm talking about like ZK, zero knowledge privacy, and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking about something that is solely focused on sort of privacy and hiding transactional data. And yeah, they've now stifled that. And this, I mean, actually, look. I actually need to zoom out a little bit here, but it started off today at 165, and we're now down at 100. We got 103. We got down to 100. So yeah, it has lost a significant amount, nearly 40% of today's price. And I, on the right hand side, you can kind of see my token list, and Binance is the one we're on at the moment. But I just a few other exchanges just to show it's not Binance. It's struggling. It's across the board. So. Not a good position to be in. I don't think any of us in the group are necessarily in Monero or any other privacy tokens. But if you happen to find you are, and your price hasn't fallen yet because it's not Monero or multi-chain, then perhaps you might want to consider what the future of this really is. Okay, this I think is a really good story actually. So Ethereum naming service. We've talked about this probably over a year ago now. I was going to say the GoDaddy of Web3. GoDaddy obviously being domain names for Web2, the internet as everyone else knows it. But actually, the Ethereum naming service, ENS, has actually partnered with GoDaddy. And why is this good? Because, we have two very similar products, companies, whatever you want to call them. One working in Web 2, one working in Web 3. And instead of fighting against each other, they've actually joined with each other. And the beauty of this is that there's now an easy way for you to utilize your Ethereum naming service on Web 3, but utilizing it on your Web 2 internet domain and vice versa, which is only going to help speed up adoptability. I'm not saying it's going to get solved tomorrow, But when we talked about ENS as an actual research token way back when, we mentioned, back in the early days of the internet, we didn't have crypto saving expert or google.com. It was normally 192.168. whatever. And it was only when, we actually were able to use, I was going to say alphanumeric, but it's generally just alpha characters, alphabetical characters in the naming titles that really help people adopt it. It's a bit easier to remember and a bit easier to use. So I think, it's a good crypto. It's now linked with pretty much the biggest domain name service in the internet or in Web 2. So yeah, positive. And I think I did have a look, since the announcement of that, it's actually up. I mean, it's up this month, 71%, but I think when it was announced, which is the beginning of February, it's actually up around about 30%. So, some positive reaction off the back of that. I'm not in this token. As I said, we've done a research token on it. If it's something that you're interested in, definitely check that one out. But it is not a bad token. It's not a bad project at all. Funnily enough, it's going to link to talking about airdrops a little bit later on as well. So that's kind of it for the news. As I say, I don't want to labor it too long. Just one thing I'm going to talk about. So last week I did that little PowerPoint slide, if you will, talking about how you can work out where the price may be in Q4 2025. And I mentioned that I was developing a spreadsheet, and I've been working on that, and it's not finished by any means. But what I've kind of noticed whilst I've been writing it up is it's pretty much just all the tokens are just based on my portfolio, or ones that I'm necessarily interested in. So it's just sort of reaching out there, whether or not you put it in this chat here or you put it in Discord or however you want to get the message to me. If there's any tokens that you want on this, then let me know and I'll try and add it. You'll see I've started to fill most of the data in, most of the formulas are all in, etc. I now just got to do a little bit of research and digging around on either some of the newer ones or just going through the charts for the historic data. It's pretty boring and there's a lot of data entry, so I'm just doing it piecemeal. But if anyone's got anything that they want added to this, like I'm going to add Flux and Manta to it because I missed them. I don't know why. But yeah, let me know and I'll be more than happy to add them. Obviously, if I suddenly get 50 requests, I will add them all, but I may just add a few and then get this out and then I'll add them periodically. There is no link on this to live price updates because I'm not paying for the API access to CoinMarketCap. So ultimately what you'll have to do is, if you ever did use this, is just make sure that price is correct. Now, current price is actually only used in one field. It's not based off that, which I went through last week. But anyway, just let you have an update on where we are with that. Don't think we have any questions at the moment. So what we'll do is we'll just dive straight in to airdrops after I've had a drink. Okay, for any of you that utilize crypto Twitter, crypto X, if you ever go on YouTube searching crypto related content, over the last 2 months, certainly over the last month, you would have found it almost impossible to not stumble across somebody either promoting a specific airdrop or talking about airdrop farming and how you may be able to make muchos dollars off the back of it through just a few simple, easy steps. And what I've noticed is that amount of content just seems to be increasing. And it now, certainly maybe the algorithm has triggered for me, is that the vast majority of my YouTube content that's recommended to me seems to be related to airdrops. And I am undertaking a couple of airdrops at the moment based on the Solana network, and I've got another one that I do want to get in. But what I'm noticing is there just seems to be a huge fashion at the moment, hype, whatever you want to call it, to just push airdrops. And I want to just sort of go over what airdrops are and kind of give you my view on where that could be, because whilst I do see some benefits for airdrops, I really do, I have just a worry through past experience that potentially we may be going down an ICO or potentially a rebasing DAO route, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. But as we know, neither of those two worked out very well in the end. So what are crypto airdrops? So I wrote some notes down here as well, so apologies if I do. It is basic term for me. An airdrop is just a means of distributing tokens. Now, typically that token distribution is almost issued as a reward for loyalty, of either utilizing the protocol, for either providing liquidity to the protocol or project, or just generally supporting the project in a whole. And if done right, actually it's a very good way in which you can do that. And you'll be surprised that airdrops have actually been around a very long time. I'm talking like 2016. And some of the largest projects that are out there at the moment, which you may think, because you never thought about how they actually came about, were actually born out of airdrops themselves. And so they can be highly successful. And even in the current hype that we're experiencing at the moment, there's not many that haven't been successful in one form or another. But before I go into the pros and cons, I just want to kind of explain airdrops a little bit more. And apologies if this is a little noddy for some of you that are a bit more experienced, you know what they are, but just try and cater effectively for all. I'll post this article. It is a year and a half old, but it's just about what they are. So there's nothing necessarily groundbreaking within it. So as I mentioned, typically when a project or a protocol, generally layer ones, I'll be honest, but you may get layer twos, so things that are built off layer ones. When they are looking to starting up can be an incredibly difficult time, because ultimately you've got to try and drive traffic, you've got to drive interest, and you've got to drive a user base to whatever project it is you're putting forward. And so as an incentive or a reward for community members to get behind that project, instead of doing pre-sales or anything else, they can do pre-sales at the same time, but they reserve a certain amount of token allocations to issue to the community as a reward for interacting. And there's 3 different ways you can do an airdrop, which I'll explain in a moment. And that's effectively, a good way of distributing the tokens in a fair way, in an ideal world, in a fair way, because they generally go to people who are interested in the project and have the project's best interests in heart. And they are rewarded not in USDT, but they're rewarded in the project's token, the native token, that's going to just help sustain the project going forward. I'm just trying to see if there's anything in this before I skip over it. So what is an airdrop? So an airdrop is a method by which you can earn free crypto, which we kind of talked about. Several ways in which you can receive these tokens. Many times an airdrop is associated with free cryptocurrency, but this isn't necessarily true. You have to put in time or effort, or you may have to deal with transaction fees. So it's going to talk about the different types of airdrops in a moment. So crypto projects have a certain amount of available tokens, that token distribution we talked about, that they give to people who meet eligibility requirements. And that's the 3 different ways. I'm sure there's more, but there's 3 main ways. By completing certain tasks, you become eligible for these tokens. There are several ways to participate in airdrops. Often you have to sign up to an airdrop or perform other actions, and after completing the tasks or winning the tokens, you can then claim them and they'll be deposited into your wallet. So the different types, so there's 3. There's a standard airdrop, a bounty airdrop, and a holder airdrop. So the standard airdrop are tokens that are distributed for free, and you effectively don't have to do anything. You just create an account, you give a wallet address, and then at a certain time, tokens are distributed to that wallet address, and the amount is stipulated prior to it, prior to you signing up. So the first 100 will get 5%. The first, that works, that'd be 500%. But the first 100 will get 500 tokens. The next 100 to 1,000 will get 250 tokens, etc., etc. These crypto airdrops are hugely popular because you don't actually have to do anything to participate with them. It's almost risk-free, and even if you're not a fan of the project, you can then just immediately sell them. They are distributed fairly in agreement with whatever the rules that are stipulated at the beginning are. They can be done via a draw, and then you have a chance to win, but you're not guaranteed to win if you do it that way. Bounty airdrops. Now, bounty airdrops are what I'm doing at the moment, and I'll go through that in a bit more detail in a second. But bounty airdrops are effectively where you have to do something. You have to complete a task or several tasks to earn rewards, to tick those off, and by doing that, you meet the criteria to then receive the airdrop. Now, this is probably the most common right now, because what we're seeing, particularly with these layer 2s, I would say, and some instances layer ones, these protocols, are asking you to deposit funds for liquidity pools or to transact on, decentralized trading platforms, or to lend or borrow money. So whatever it is, but you are completing a task and you are providing one, the liquidity, two, the user base, and three, you are interacting with that exchange, which then they can, I don't want to use the term market, but they can, prove that actually this is working, people are using it, people are interested in it. And the idea behind it is, you go in initially for the reward, but actually you enjoy using it. And so you stay after the reward is provided and you become part of that community. They're not normally that difficult. So for me, I am, get a new screen up. So I am doing one on Camino Finance. Earlier on, this wasn't loading up very well. So this one is a borrowing and lending platform. So I have lent some money to them, and then I have also borrowed some out. Now I've done it in stable coins, so the risk of me becoming liquidated is very slim unless one of my stable coins absolutely spikes. But you can see at the moment that my points, 163,000. I'm currently 17,000. I'm earning around about 3,000 points a day, and they just acquired. Now this, we've now been informed. This will run till the end of March, and then a snapshot will be taken. I don't know if the top 20,000 are going to get anything, or if everyone does, and it just depends on your level. We don't know that. We'll find out at some stage. But I'm just going to continue to keep this running, and we'll see what happens. Similarly, I'm also doing MarginFi. Now, MarginFi, I actually started a little bit beforehand. But what's interesting with MarginFi, very similar. So I have deposited and then lent and then deposited. And what I kind of did is I put a large amount of money. Well, it didn't. It's $4,000. I put $2,000 in each, and then I just sent them to the other one. So they're kind of just playing off the back of each other, making sure that I'm covering any borrowing fees and all that kind of stuff. But this one, we don't know when the airdrop is going to take place, nor do we know how the points are being broken down. I just know I'm being rewarded points, and I'm fluctuating quite a bit from this. Sometimes I'm at 11,000, sometimes I'm at 13,000. So, but when I started, I was about 165,000 wallet size. But I've been around those levels now for about a month or so. So again, I'm just accumulating points, and we'll see where they go. And what this is a bounty. To qualify for those points. So for lending, I'll get a certain amount of points. So that's tick. That's one bounty complete. And for borrowing, I'll get some. So tick. There we go again. I think with Camino, I'm actually using find some liquidity pools as well. Now I started doing some other ones like Drift. Now Drift is a decentralized perp trading platform, and I was using it, but I just wasn't trading enough. So I might get a little bit there, but we don't know what the points are. But yeah, so that's how it can work, and they do vary in levels of complexity. I've got to admit, I had to write down on a piece of paper which ones I sent from where, so that I can just follow it back. Because I started doing this in November. Come March, April, I'll have totally forgotten if I hadn't written it down, which USDC was originally at which place, so I can unwind all of this. But anyway, that's where that goes. Going back to here. And then the final type is called a holder airdrop. So a holder airdrop is where you just receive cryptocurrencies because you happen to hold tokens of another currency, cryptocurrency, and then they did a snapshot. You may not have even been aware that it happened, and then suddenly you just wake up with some tokens in your wallet. That's it. And that is exactly what happened to me on Phantom. I don't know if this is going to show up. I don't really care. Phantom is only in there. So some USDT, some USDC, some Solana, some Ethereum. Not bothered about that. Some Camino. Where is? I sold it. That's a shame. That's a shame. I would have been a good example. So because I happen to have some Solana on this wallet, because I happen to also have some on Camino and MarginFi, I then ended up getting 640,000 JTO tokens because they just did a snapshot and I didn't apply for anything. I happened to get it. And I think at one stage it was worth the best part of $120 million. Sadly, I didn't cash out then, but I sold it for around about $300. So hey, you take the rough with the smooth in the air farm and airdrop game. So yeah, so why are they good? Well, for me, it's free money because ultimately I didn't have to really do anything or risk any capital. And no matter what the price of it comes out as, it's going to be more than what I started with. So for us as the recipients, it's free money. And in crypto, because we're all degens, we kind of flock towards free money. It also is good for the projects or the protocols because it requires me to use it. And, they need that traffic going through. They need those liquidity pools building up, etc. So that helps with them, as I mentioned earlier. What was I put here? I don't know what. I added liquidity yet, and used to be sustainability. I'm not sure what I meant by that. But it does work very beneficially for those things there. And it does create that sense of community, again, if done right. And we just have a look at some of the cryptos that have used it in the past. So this is the top 50 biggest crypto airdrops. Number one, which I think may be a shock to a few of you, is Uniswap. Uniswap was actually an airdrop. Now that airdrop value was $6.4 billion. ApeCoin was also an airdrop. DYDX, another derivatives, a decentralized derivatives platform, airdrop. Arbitrum, one of the biggest ones out there. Ethereum name service was an airdrop. Now, we'll get onto the negative side of things in a moment, but Ethereum name services, if I remember correctly, they airdropped it all to the community, just gave it all to the community. So, it wasn't like there was anything held back. They just went, there you go, have it all. Internet Computer, ICP, Celestia, that's a very recent one that's done very well. Optimism, again, another one, 1inch Network. G2 is another recent one that's happened. WorldCoin is the guy from ChatGPT, and his name has just disappeared for me at the moment. Pith Finance is another one. So there's plenty of them that are out there. And as I say, they do create a large amount of money. Getting onto the negative side of things, because there is a dark side to it. And the problem, first and foremost, as I said with the whole YouTube thing, I've just done a little search engine, and you can scroll down. It's the last 7 days, I think. And it's just airdrops after airdrops after airdrops. That's all people are talking about. But interestingly, that's what people want to watch. So it's not just like these are getting like a couple of hundred views. These are tens of thousands of views. People are interested in how you can harvest airdrops to get the free money. Now that does create a problem for these projects because, if you think back to ICOs in their principle were very much alike to airdrops in that they were a way to distribute tokens and to create value behind a project. Now, initially ICOs worked very well. It's just when they were overplayed that they fell apart. And anyone that was around in 2018, you probably got stung by being in an ICO. So what you've got here is now it almost feels that because there's so much hype around airdrops at the moment, because there's so much news and noise around it, anyone that is releasing a token for a protocol or a project, they almost feel obligated to do it via an airdrop because that seems to be the only way to cut through the noise and to get the levels of interest that they may need to actually stand out above the crowd. So they've almost forced it into doing that. But whereas before, if it's done right and it's done not in a hype scenario, you can create a good community or you can reward your community for their loyalty. What we're really getting now are mercenaries. They don't care about your project. They don't care what direction it goes in. They don't care that it works. They'll stay with you until the airdrop's landed. And then the likelihood is that they're going to go and sell that token for their free money. And what that does is it creates a false economy for starters, because it's priced as one thing, and then there's a huge amount of sell pressure with limited actual genuine interested parties that want to buy it, so it just pushes the price down. But it also creates that false community, that false narrative behind it that this is well supported by the community and it's going to do things, because actually people aren't invested in it. They don't care. They just want it for the money, and they're waiting to take that money and move it into the next one. And that kind of creates sort of almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, in that people get these free tokens, they sell it, they make some money, they move it into the next one, they do whatever task they need to do there, they get even more tokens, they sell that, and the chain goes on and on and on, and suddenly we're snowballing out of control. And that's where this kind of starts to feel like rebasing DAOs a little bit. So the original rebasing DAO, Ohm, if you remember, started in like April 21, and come September 21, it's pretty much only Ohm that was doing it. But then you went November, December, and then into the early times of 2022, and it felt like every day there was another fork of Ohm creating another rebasing DAO, and they were just not sustainable because people were just hopping from the higher APRs to higher APRs. There was actually no real money behind it. These TVLs, these runways, whatever you want to call them, were just completely false because they were fabricated behind artificial communities that were actually just looking to move on as quick as they could. And that's where I feel this is going. And what we could suddenly have is a lot of projects, good projects potentially, that have been almost forced to launch via an airdrop, distributing a significant amount of their tokens to a community that is disingenuous and isn't really bothered about it, and they're going to move on straight away to something else. And then what does that do? It just creates an overall sell pressure. A lot of these projects may not survive, and I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow, and I'm certainly not stopping airdropping. But if this pace continues and continues and continues through the bull market, we may be looking back in 18 months' time and going, you know what really damaged us? It was airdrop farming. And so, just something for me to look out for and try and understand, where it's going to go. Now, as I said, there are other ones that I'm interested in because they're projects that are on my radar. And that's another interesting thing is, like what I did with MarginFi, like what I did with Drift, we didn't actually know if there was going to be an airdrop. We just wanted to interact with them under the premise that there was going to be an airdrop. And that's similarly with one of these other projects that I'm looking at. We don't know if there's going to be an airdrop at all, but it looks like there probably will be because it's in the narrative of having to conform with all of that to stick its head above the parapet. So I will probably move into that, but I'll stick my hand up. As soon as MarginFi and Camino airdrops are finished, I don't care about lending protocols or borrowing protocols. I'm going to see what it's worth, and if it's worth selling, then I'll look to sell some. And I will move on. I will be that mercenary. That's what I got into it for. And hey, I may continue to do that, but I will be part of the problem if that is the case. So that's just my 2 cents on airdrops. I'm just going over a couple of pages just to make sure I haven't missed anything. There was just one other negative, I suppose, is it suddenly becomes the expectation. So because Celestia tier was a very successful airdrop, anything that's built off the back of that, the community is expecting that all of those will be released as an airdrop. And as I say, it just puts pressure on these protocols, pressures on these projects. And let's face it, the early days of any project are some of the toughest. And if they're forced down a route that they don't necessarily want to go down, it doesn't always end up being that well. I appreciate anybody else's thoughts on it. Have any of you ever participated or participating in airdrops? And are you one of those that you were in there before because you thought you liked the project, you were part of the community anyway, and you just happened to take advantage of the airdrops? Or you're a bit like me, and you saw something back in November and thought, I've seen people making 15 grand a week here from just providing $400 worth. I'd like to get in on that and see what it's like. There's no shame in that. I'm not here to chastise anyone that's here for the money. The tech is one thing, but we're all here to make some money at the end of the day. But yeah, it's just something we need to be careful of. I think that's it. I didn't bother going through these, but I'll post them in there. So Uniswap, it talks about this, but this other one here is some other ones that are coming out, which may be of some interest. Which is definitely worth having a look at. This is a bit old because Swell, I believe, has happened. I have to double check that. Egen layer, that's the one that I'm looking at. It's in a restaking sector. So, you're staking Ethereum to support the network, and you stake it, and it goes from Ethereum to ST ETH. Well, this is then all about creating all of those different liquid staking derivatives, it calls it here, pooling those together, and then you being able to restake those somewhere else. So it's about restaking. Could be a pretty interesting sector, and just allowing people to, add an additional layer to rewards that are already receiving for provided security. So that's definitely one that I'm looking at. Yeah, some of the other ones that are here, you can have a look at these. I mean, you can just Google 2024 airdrops if you're interested in them. There'll be so many articles about it, or just have a look at all these bad boys. There'll be plenty in here that you can have a look through. So yeah, all right, let's just have a look. Some things in the chat here. So I'm expert Harry. Simon posted the CAS power chart earlier, which is kind of what your price prediction was for CAS. Is it worth using low leverage? Like, oh, okay. Yeah, do you know? So homework for tomorrow for me, because I didn't go to the cuddle, is understanding what this power law thing is. Never really heard of it, but I'll be interested. It'll probably go straight over my head. But I'll do it as a bit of homework, because I know we've got on Thursday, we've actually got 2 trading pubs. We've got one at the usual time, it's going to be an hour long. Then we've got a live one at 1800, where we've got the gentleman that created this to go through it. So it'll be interesting to go to that. But yeah, I did see just from the post we put in Discord that we were talking about, you know, $1, I think was it what, 150 or 120? I'll have to look at my sheet in a bit for the next bull run, which is interesting. I mean, still 10 to 12x from here, but you got to bear in mind, a lot of us got into CAS. I'm not in it anymore, but got into CAS at 4 cents. So actually, if it gets to $1.20, you know, we're actually looking at 30x, which is pretty impressive. You've then gone and say, is it worth using low leverage like 2x and then just holding that till our exit in order to get the 2025x with low risk as it crashes and more predictable than standard alts? CAS is a safer part of my pot. So you're talking about trading, derivative trading your CAS. I presume you probably can do that on some. So, like, there's obviously the lower the leverage you use, you know, leverage is going to inform where your liquidation price is. Now, you shouldn't in theory ever have to worry about your liquidation price, because as a good trader, you've got a stop loss in somewhere. And if you're only using 2x, you're still going to have your stop loss wherever that will turn out to be, but it may just end up that it's not going to cost you as much. The lower the leverage, the lower the risk. It doesn't eliminate it totally that you get liquidated. It doesn't mean that you won't get stopped. And every trade should have this has gone the wrong way level. So I wouldn't recommend that you just went in, left it, and just off you went. I know some people like to do that, and yeah, you know, obviously that can work out for you. You've got to remember a couple of things. One, fees. So you'll have funding rates, and depending on if it's on a decentralized exchange or if it's on a centralized, you may have other fees that you necessarily need to pay. And if you're leaving this for 18 months, those fees may add up. So just bear that one in mind, because it's how those fees are deducted. Are they deducted from your unrealized profits, or do you need to pay them every so often? So definitely check that out. And, you know, if CAS is your safer part of your pot, you've got to remember why you consider it your safer part of your pot. You know, that's the element in which you're not really wanting to mess around with. You know, it's risky enough being in crypto. And if there's an element where you just want to be safe, then I would question why you want to then you know, add extra risk to that. You know, if you're classing it as a safe pot, maybe what you need to do is get another pot of CAS in which you can trade that. But yeah, so going to that drift protocol as the example, I'll try and get it up. I'm not bothered. Even there may be $1,000 on there. It's not the end of the world that you guys see that. So what I was doing with the Bitcoin here, I'll admit I was doing, like, you know, changing the leverage on the side here. It's not going to let me do it because I haven't connected my wallet. But on the left hand side to leverage, I was never going more than 2x, and I was, you know, because I was just, all I wanted to do was open and close trades. Obviously, I went to close the trades in profit, but I was just looking to earn points so that I could qualify for the airdrop. But you know, it was still, I was still making successful trades, and even at 1.2% leverage or whatever, it was more than I would have done if it was at 1. So you know, it's that winning by 1,000 plasters rather than paper cuts. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. You get the point. Rich has put, you had a token that was worth 120 million. I did. And it wasn't worth 120 million just for 1 second. This bad boy was worth 120 million for a while. Wasn't this one? Which one was it? It wasn't J2. What was it called? It was the Jupiter one. It might be this one. See how long it's been out for. Nope, wasn't that. I can't remember which one it is now. This is very disappointing. It was this one. No, it wasn't. It wasn't this one. I will find it. I talked about it in last week's call. But for a moment, it stayed at $1,800 per token for about 40 minutes. Now, I don't know, what caused that. I didn't know, Richard, it was that price, because it was like it launched, stayed at that price. I wasn't even aware that I was getting these tokens. I just happened to switch it on. Now, I would argue there was probably very little sells that were able to happen at that price. It was just bot driven up to there. But then it came crashing down. I wish I knew which one it was. How am I going to be able to find out which one it was? Must have sold it somewhere. Can't remember. If Jamie's on, I talked to him about it last week. Let's see if I can find it. I'm never gonna be able to find it. Anyway, yeah, for a time it was worth a lot of money, but it wasn't really, and I didn't know it was there. So never mind. Maybe next time. Anyway, that's kind of caught us up with some of the questions. So let's just have a move through. So we've gone over the sheet. So let's have a look at. Okay. So let's try and have a look at Bitcoin in a little bit more detail. So it's the beginning of a month, or the first call of the month. So I've updated the chart. It's now thoughts from the 6th of February 2024. It's on the daily chart. We'll go through as we've seen. As always, I've tried to identify areas of liquidation levels that have taken from high block. This stuff here, I've just populated on my chart. So what we've seen is the level at 51,000 has actually grown now. It wasn't at 51, it was at 52 to 52.8. It's now at 51,000. So it's starting to build up. People are starting to think about where their shorts can go. What is also interesting is we used to have two separate levels at 35,000. So there was a 35,000 to 34,000, and then there was a, to 34,400, and then there was a, I can't remember where it was, but these were two separate zones that have now merged together as one master zone, if you will. It's this block here. Oh, I don't know where my 38. There should be one here at 38,400. It's just building. We can draw that now. There's one that's just building here. Just change that to 3. Change that to yellow. Change the lines to yellow. We'll put the labels on a little bit later, but we can see where that's starting to build up. So looking at the rest, the blue line on the chart is the 50 EMA, and what we have seen is we are stabilizing above it. So for the last 8 or 9 days, we've interacted with it, but we haven't fallen through it at all. So that 50 is looking pretty strong at the moment. So as much as we are ranging, you could argue on a very small time frame, if we look at some lower ones a little bit later on, that there's some form of rectangular rectangle here. Let's draw another one. Maybe you could argue that coming off this, there's some sort of bull flag, and at some stage that'll break, and that takes us back up to 47,000, which is the level we talked about previously. But anyway, so there's some sort of thing falling out there. But what I would say is our year-long or over year-long 15-month trend line, we are still trading below that. So if, potentially when, but if we do break north, for me, the next real level of resistance, take out this 44,500, which is the tops around here, it's going to be when it interacts with this trend line. For me, this trend line has just played such an important role over the last 15 months and the start of this bull run. I just can't see why it would break through it immediately. I'm not saying it won't break through it, but, and then as you saw, by the time we extrapolate this out, we do need to now. you know, we are talking around about 47,000 in just a couple of days. And if that bull flag that I just drew were to play out, that's kind of the level that we may be looking to get towards, which also then ties in with some other stuff we talked last week. So again, let me just duplicate this and I'll get rid of everything. Don't worry, low time frames are coming, I promise you. Let's just delete all of that. So we talked last week, you know it. W minus 1, minus 2, down there minus 3, and we were wondering when, you know, dip down, are we starting to form some form of M? We talked about actually, you know, it could be anywhere from 46,000 all the way up to 49,000. And there were reasons with fib levels and everything else as to why we could get there. Well, that move up could form that second peak, and then suddenly down we go. So that's kind of, you know, I'm still of the mindset that I still think there's further room north to run. It could roll over here, and that, you know, could be classed as that second peak. But yeah, I still stand by the fact that I think there is some element to run up there. Now, you know, we all love a good fib, so we'll just take the fib from there down to here. Now, I mean, I've taken it from that bottom, which is the right place to take it, and I have taken it up to that top, which is the right place to take it. Everything was interacting on the 236 very well. It broke through. It recovered it fairly quickly, but it kind of caught itself at no man's land in and around this price action. So we'll just take that one where it is, but we're sat in no man's land between here. And again, you run that up to the top of there. I know it's spiked at 49,000, but the body's closed at 47,000, which again, kind of tying in where I think a move north would be. Now, the only thing of any interest is there's not really much in terms of liquidation levels there to really incentivize any sort of, you know, just a sharp pull up to there and then a turn back round. We could have a look at the order book and see if there are any orders, but ultimately it's not there. But everything is kind of building at this 51. And I suppose the argument could be had that actually if we have that move up, we happen to break a psychological level of 50,000, everyone suddenly gets the big FOMO. The big FOMO. We're there. We're getting to 69,000 before halvening. The day is on. We clip that previous, that liquidation level. And it turns out to be, it is a second peak. It just so happens that the peak is higher this side. And then we start to see the reverse. And let's not forget, I mean, I've deleted them because they aren't there, but we used to have, right at this peak, right there was another liquidation level of 48 to 49,000, and it hit it perfectly and then retraced back down. So, yeah. That's where it's at. I mean, we talked about other charts, which I'll try and remember where I drew them on. Don't think it was clean. That wasn't that one. That's why I like to have my charts set up beforehand, so I'm not bumbling around trying to find it. Nope. Financial, no. I don't know where it is. None of those, unfortunately. But if you remember, I drew previous fib levels and I talked about it hitting 48,000, which is fib level, and then retracing back for maybe a month or two, leading to the halvening and then climbing back up. Well, just do it. Not the best, but I'll have to quickly redraw it for everybody. So you go, I've done it on previous cycles as well, but if you go from all-time high to all-time low, you can see here that it interacted, and we drew this before it happened, it interacted the 786 perfectly, bounced back down, kissed off the 618, and it's come back. So it's played those two levels very well. And if I can ever find that chart, we're doing exactly the same thing that happened in this cycle and in this cycle. So yeah, we are, you know, we're still following that movement at the moment. This it was. See, it had that interaction there, came back down to 618 and off it went. We've had that happen. So that's what it's going to be. We've had the move. We need now to break the 786. Confirm that the move upwards is to continue. Right, I promise you it's lower time frames. So let's go down onto some of the lower time frames. And let's just move it to. Okay. So, I mean, the 4 hour, still not looking particularly great for me. It's just had that level of stagnation, and it's been flat for so long that the 50 the 10 and the 20 have just all merged into one, and the 200 into one sort of super EMA at the moment, and we just haven't been able to shake it. I've got to zoom in so you can probably see it a little bit better. But you know, that is, you know, where we sit. It still feels like some form of rectangle, and I would argue it's still some sort of bullish. But it's been boring. I'm sorry. That's the reality. There's nothing has really happened in the week. You think where we were Tuesday the 30th, so by the time of the call, which was here, you know, we were at 43,352. We're at 43,110 in 7 days, and it's hardly moved either way since then. So it's just not really looking like there's anything entertaining, and I'd argue the same with the 1 hour. Now, what is interesting with the 1 hour is I've not drawn these lines on. These are the high of the weeks and the lows of the weeks, and they have just formed the baseline of where we're going, and we've kind of nipped back up to each of them. Started to stabilize a bit more centrally, I suppose. But they've just formed a very clean area for us to operate in and around. So we will sadly leave Bitcoin behind, because that's not where the interesting bit has been. And actually, Bitcoin dominance has started to fall away a little bit. And Ethereum dominance, it's on the 1 hour chart, I appreciate. But today, Ethereum's dominance has started to decline strong, not just against Bitcoin, but against a lot of other altcoins as well. So people seem to be moving into Ethereum. So let's have a look at the Ethereum chart itself. So we're going to start on the 1 hour, seeing as that's where we were. And yeah, you know, a nice, solid, clean up. We have had, you know, that interaction. So look at this. I said at the beginning of the talk. So let's go on to the 15-minute, so you know I'm not full of shit. You might think I am. So 8 o'clock, the 8 o'clock candle, 15-minute was here. I started talking about it at the beginning. I said the real interaction is going to be at 2400. And that's exactly where we got to. And it's turned around beautifully. It's rejected back down. Okay, it's the 15-minute. I mean, yeah. I just got these candles here to just show you that it's had that interaction there. So everything now for me is what's going to happen over these next few hours. How is this candle here going to close? Because if it can't clear that, we might be having exactly the same selling pressure that we've had just there. And we've got two topping patterns that are kind of forming that maybe look to see, not saying it's the end of it, but we may then suddenly start to see a sweep all the way back down, clearing out, you know, 2250, and maybe we actually start to look at this down here at sort of 2190 down there. So very much a focus right now on here. Now, reasons to head north, we've still got a couple of vector candles up here, so, you know, not unreasonable to get there. If we have a look on the fib, yeah, down there. I mean, price at the moment is at the 0.5, so yeah, an interesting place for it to turn around. Just want to see how this one closes in the next 3 hours. Okay, let's get on to Tau. That's what people want to see, isn't it? Oh, okay, apologies. That was just a screenshot I did earlier as I was just shopping for a bit more Tau, and you can see some of them are hit. Now, this is where using the right chart helps, because I've basically put, you know, my levels at $5, and you'd think it's hit. I was buying on Qcoin and it didn't hit. So this one actually, I've kept yellow, even though it's breached through it. So I'll get rid of those in a second, but I just wanted to show you what I was doing is I was running up, and then when I saw this turn around, I just put a fib up again, and I was having a look at levels. I actually did this on the hourly chart, sorry. Let's get stuff. Doesn't look right there. You know what? You guys have seen what just delete. You saw where those buys were. It's going to be too confusing having another set of lines. This one, I think it was. So you can kind of see 495. That's where I started. I thought it'd come back down to there, which it did, and then obviously it's 480, 470, 460, 445. So obviously there were other levels as well, but I was just seeing that they may be where we're going. And I still feel that we may actually start to see at least down to sort of that 360 level as a pullback. It has turned around over the last couple of hours, so we'll have to wait and see. Step by step, Alzheimer's guys, would you please go over your Tau fib levels? Yeah, I assume you probably didn't mean on the 1 hour chart. That's what I was looking at here. So I have just been increasing my pot size since last week's call. And just sort of just do a little bit more. I mean, it's one of those annoying ones where last night when I was looking at it, it was at 427. I wake up in the morning and we're over 500. But, you don't ape in at the top. You wait for something to come back. You try and pick some levels, and that's what I was doing. And from a mindset point of view, of yes, it can go lower. I've got more money on the side. I'm kind of now thinking longer term. I'm trying to get my head back to where I was in December 2022, where I was buying stuff. I wasn't too worried about sitting in red. I think the fact that my portfolios look very green since October, it's almost made you afraid to have some red tokens in there, but it's perfectly acceptable to have them. So if we just get back out of this, we go on the daily. Let's just have a look at the daily, because we have got into all-time highs, price discovery, and it's kind of hard. How do we know where price is going to go? It's difficult for us to turn around. And I've used fibs in the past. I've used extensions to see where it goes past the point. But let's just try and draw it out. Let's have a look at some of these. So this was measuring from December down to January. But actually, if you look, it's respected these levels going through. You can do your own time. But it got to 473 and it bounced perfectly off that. I came back down here and didn't find a fib level. It just found the 10 EMA instead. But we saw that and it's come back up. Got to kind of wait to see where that goes. And we could add more fib levels to this to try and give us some. But I kind of stopped normally at 1.68 because I just don't know how well the accuracy of that's going to go. But 530, maybe that's sort of a level that we need to have a look around to see if it has a breather there. Now, the ease in which it sometimes goes through some of these, it may have a breather for a day or 12 hours or so, but after that it's gone. So it has felt for the last few weeks like waiting to try and find a pullback for Tau has just left you in the lurch. So I've taken one for the team and bought a bit more today, and if it heads back, you guys are all welcome. But just see where it ends up. Let's just close that one off. Do that now. If we drop it down onto the 4 hour and then just have a look at how it's done here, even this small one. So obviously we had some form of top form here and some sort of bottom form there. We could draw the same. Have a look through, and again, 618. This is where it's at now. 505. That's it rejected off those quite nicely. Come back down, and lo and behold, what's caught it again on the 4 hour? The 10 EMA. And the 10 EMA on the 4 hours is a good one. It does like that. So, let's see. The 20 may well end up catching it. Maybe we do get down. The 50 EMA, which is, not been touched since middle of January. I mean, that's at 430 at the moment. So, that one's been climbing quite strongly, and it will continue to climb strongly given how sharp some of these candles have been. I'm still of the mindset, though, that if Bitcoin does decide to have start that leg down, I don't believe any crypto has disconnected. I do believe Tau and others will fall with it. Maybe not straight away, but Bitcoin is king for a reason. And so money on the sideline is going to help. I'm trying to get a pot just to stake, a long-term staking pot, try and fire and forget about it. Let's have a look at some of the other ones that have been doing well. Renders continued to, it says that, had been continuing to do well. It's obviously another AI project and narrative. It had done well. Similar to BitTensor. I've got to remember that. We can kind of see a double bottom that formed here. It broke the neckline, and now it's come back to retest it. So all eyes are on what it does at this retest. Is it going to break back through, or are we going to see some sort of level there? Render's done very well. I want to talk about one that I don't want to talk about now. It's going to be tough for me, so bear with me. That's Link. Link. So, for those of you that are in Link, well done. It had another move, and it gave us plenty of opportunity to get into this if you were thinking about it. So, let's take me back through my sordid history of Link. We were in that ranging pattern, $9 to $5.50 for well over a year. We broke out at it at the wrong time. I literally sold this green candle. So that's why I don't like Link anymore. But we flew up to $16 and we ranged from 16 to 13 for, again, another 4 months, 3-4 months. And now we've broken through that level. I want to just put it, I'm going to put it on 3-day, but I'm going to hide some of this just so we can kind of see how important that level was. So on the 3-day, and you just look, you know, cast your eyes left. It took a while to break it, but you know, March 22, February 22, the price action December 21, around about where it turned around the summer, on the way up in 21 as well, and then when it had his own little peak season in August 20. You know, important levels that finally got through. And you know, if you can stick the landing here for a couple of weeks, then it looks like it's going to be building another great level of support for it to build off. And I still think Link has got a great future ahead of it. Have a look. Just tease myself with Chainlink on here. So, you know, potentially $300. Still 16x from where it is at the moment. So, you know, not out of the realm of possibility. I think, you know, it is a monster one there. It's got, you know, Oracle, interoperability, DeFi. It's got smart contracts. The narratives are very strong for it, and it's performing well. So yeah, I don't necessarily think these are particularly out of the realms of possibility. Where was I? But yeah, so a really strong move up from Link, and now it just needs to, you know, consolidate here, build off that, and then form its next step. If we fail out of that one there, then you know I'd at least expect it to see the lower part of this range. Any other ones that really stand out? Not really, not ones that I'm holding. I know people talk about Kaz, so I don't have the fractal patterns I know Simon's used to me, but yeah, it's got a bit more of a whimper than a lot of the other ones had. You know, you'd think this is November we're talking about, where we are, it's a 3-day time frame, and it's just been compressing and squeezing, and these candles are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, so there's going to be some move that happens. I think Simon thinks, excuse me, we may see, you know, bottom down of this spike again, so 7.5 cents. An absolute worst case, we could have a look at 5.4. Someone wants me to look at Claw and Mirror. Yeah. At these ones Simon's in. Take it. Okay. So, I mean, straight away, Claw. Let's take it off the 3-day. But this ain't a bad place to get in. If you really want a penny pinch, maybe you wait till it gets down to here. But to be honest with you, it's forming some sort of, you know, pattern. I really hate this yellow color. Bit much, bit in your face. Yeah, it's formed a fairly nice bottom, and then it's in a rectangle here. Now, whether or not this could fall further, what we do know is that for the past 3 months, it has held this range quite well, and you've got clear levels in which you can negate the trade and get out, and you know it does on the 3-day head to 10. You could get in a cent earlier, and you know reduce that risk. Maybe wait till it gets to 10.08. We know it hits there. We ladder in between now and there. But if you feel, oh, okay, it then loses and closes below 10 cents, and then maybe that's where you just get out and you take a 10% loss and you reevaluate. But this has been pretty clear. And again, once it does come down, you know, if it were to break it, I think, you know, you might be able to get back in at sort of 5.5 cents, or you know, where this and this intersect. So I couldn't even tell you what this project is. Don't know what it's based in. Don't know what the narrative is behind it. But from just a price action, I think this is a fairly good level to get back in. Yeah, again, no idea what this is. So with this one, what are we seeing? Put on the 12-hour. I mean, I suppose with this one, my only concern is this hasn't formed that rectangle pattern that this has, where we've had clear ups, clear downs, clear bounces. You know, this is up, it's lower every time. So we're getting those lower highs. The only saving grace, I suppose, is that it's catching itself here each time. But if you were to then draw, I don't know, some sort of connecting, you know, bodies, and it's actually connecting bodies and wicks, but you know what I mean, some sort of pattern there. Is this weakening and weakening, and we're going to see a plop? And if it does plop, I'm afraid, for me, that's the level it's going to. But if this is something you actually want, and you think you're gonna, you know, again, don't know what the narrative is, don't know what it does, you know, we're getting close to that time where any kind of buy-in is going to be a good buy, because generally, rising tide lifts all ships. We will see success from it. But if you really want to get in, I mean, again, you know, wait till it retests this level at 7 and a bit cents. You're gonna have to wait and see if it loses the bottom at 6.4. It's not cents because it's got an extra couple of decimal places. But that's 6.4. Loses that, there is nothing holding it till then. So kind of do have some levels in which you can identify how you could negate it. But yeah, I'm sure you can draw something better. This maybe you could draw it going this way. It's broken through, but it's about to lose it again. Maybe does it catch itself down here? Something like that. I don't know. That's just a very quick look, only on the daily and the 12-hour. Get any idea about Engine? They have migrated and offer a 40 to 45% APY on the Engine wallet staking. All-time lows for Engine BTC. Not much life out there. Let's look at both, shall we? Doesn't have it on. Just I feel like I know this token, but then in my head I'm like, am I confusing it with Energy Web? Okay, it's a gaming one. Launch top tier website. So this is like this is a platform to launch them as well, rather than an actual game itself, which I think is quite positive. That's I've already got a few of these, so I'm not looking for any more, but it's definitely worth that. When you say it's offering 40 to 45% APY, that worries me initially, because how are they generating that? That's a lot. How are they generating that for it to be sustainable, and how long is that 40 to 45% lasting for? So you kind of need to understand where that sits. It's down bad, isn't it? Really, you think about it. It got to 450 at the height of the bull, but 28 cents. So it's down away, but that's not, you know, that just shows there's a positive growth there. And it's been around a long time, since 2018. So it isn't something that is. I think, you know, it's got gaming side of things, fine. What are they developing? How are they developing? If they're also basing themselves on the NFT side of things, I just don't think that narrative is really stimulating at the moment. You look at any NFT, whether it be a Bored Ape or whatever, they're all down at the moment. But you know, when bull market starts, when DGens start coming back in, when gaming starts to pick up, then, you know, I can see that that's moving. In terms of actual price action at the moment, you know, again, this is kind of like, you know, this level here, I'm on the 12-hour, but I'm zoomed out. That's like a year's worth. We are really close to where it's been bouncing in and around for the last year. And so, yeah, okay, that's 24 to 21 cents. We're currently at 28 cents. You know, are we penny pinching there? But it's held this very well. You know, through some pretty tough times, end of 22, turned around there, you know, bought this off, and then, you know, from that October run up, it has fallen away more than others have, by the look of it. You know, a lot of tokens, altcoins, have had that run up to sort of Christmas, and then, yes, they've dropped off, but they're not dropped as much as this. This has lost 50% of its value, almost, since Christmas time. But yeah, it could just well be presenting itself a buying option. I mean, I don't know. this up here to this there for you. Sitting on 618 fib level at the moment as well. So again, you know, it's done these fib levels pretty well. Down here, you know, it's in work, so it's on that fib level at the moment. Maybe that's something to consider if you're looking in there. Some of the ones that I've been looking to buy, Asta, I kind of feel like I've missed it. If you don't get down here, good luck to you. BMX, I'm being greedy. It's in my buy zone. It's been in my buy zone for a while. I just haven't bought any yet. Fetch AI. Now, this is a prime example of me talking about allocating time to research, because this came out last week. There was an article that said that Fetch AI had gone into administration difficulties, administration due to financial difficulties. Obviously, that's quite concerning. Now, if you dig a little bit deeper, it transpires, and we don't know how accurate this is, but effectively, Fetch.ai has been bought out by a Middle Eastern company. It will likely be rebranded soon as well. But as part of the process of winding down its headquarters in the UK and relocating to the Middle East, it needs to close its business. And it says it's put it through administration. I didn't bother checking on Companies House or anything like that to see actually how it had been wound down. And I don't really ever trust mainstream media. So, but despite how it's wound down, that does make at least some sense. But, you know, I would have never come across this had I not have just been doing a little bit of research on all the tokens I'm thinking of buying in. Now, I still actually have some concerns because it was a UK-based project in which the vast majority of the team and the senior team were all based in the UK. The question needs to be is, now that it's been bought out and is moving to Dubai, I think, what's happening with the main team? Yeah, I get it. We're a global entity these days and there are no boundaries, but ultimately, what is happening with the senior team? What is happening with the developers and everything else? How is that going to work across there? Now, I've been in other Discord groups, and I happen to notice today that people were talking about GitHub, and there's a lot of open tasks that are not being closed out, which has, you know, for the last couple of weeks, which again, not particularly a great sign if it had been doing a lot, and then suddenly it gets reported about financial difficulties in administration. But again, could that be associated with the relocation? So, because of this, and I haven't had time to have a look at it, I'm just not interested in buying at the moment. I mean, the price is still falling away anyway. So maybe by the time I've actually researched it, we'll start to get to those price levels. But I had a buy here at 55 and I cancelled it because I wasn't happy with that article that had come out. And it just goes to show the reason why we do, we need to just continue to do it, even a tiniest bit of research, just to make sure that we're happy with where things are. Flux, I mean, that's a horrible daily candle at the moment of a high test there. So maybe we will start to continue to see that fall down, which is good, because although it's in the overall buy zone, my ideal buy zone for better returns, sits in the green. H bar, I've started to buy, and it's sadly continuing to go down, so that might not be the best move. InGen, I've liked InGen, but it was far too overvalued. It's, you know, good luck to InGen. I wish it all the best, but unless it gets down to sub 20, I'm just, the risk to rewards just not there. Manta, again, I've bought some, if nothing else than just to encourage the price to come down. But I'm still looking for sort of around about that, you know, 230 and below. So we shall see. Mina, I mean, my buy's $1. My preferred buy level's at 80 cents, so we're not near that. I've been greedy once again, and I didn't get my buy hit on Nakamoto Gaming. Don't know why I've got RLB, because I'm not going for that anymore. See ya. Long way to go. And Celestia, I've kind of given up on that one as well, so I don't know why that's on that list either. But yeah, there's still quite a bit of movement. Let me go to the total market cap. So total 2, obviously with the total 2 is everything except for BTC, and with, you know, ETH moving up as it is, we've started to see that moving. Matter of fact, this chart looks very much like the ETH chart, a bit like total 1 looks very much like the BTC chart, because it's so strongly weighted towards Ethereum. Now we are having that same sort of sticking point at around about 770 billion. The ETH has around about 2400. So I think those two futures are very much aligned. But similarly, it's above all the EMAs at the moment. It's still climbing up. Kind of feels like there's still definitely room left to run. I suppose you could argue that there may be a shoulder ahead and a shoulder forming. But for that shoulder to form, we will need to see this come down, which will ultimately mean that we need to see alt start to fall down. And then I don't know, you draw the neckline there. But no, at the moment, I'm sticking similarly with where we are with the ETH narrative. I mean, if we go to total 3, the only real thing that sort of strikes me on the daily is definitely that is happening at the moment. I know it's wiki, but a lot of alts combined. But yeah, it's getting pushed down at the moment. It's fighting back, I get it, but at the moment, it is really struggling to beat these levels. And so see how the next couple of days form. But we're squeezing now. So the candle, you can see here, the candle bodies are getting a lot smaller, a lot thinner. All the EMAs are squeezing together. Feels like that is going to cause a move. Just which way that move is going to be, unfortunately, what we don't know. What's your reason for skipping and investing in Rollbit? Do you know what? I'm just not necessarily that interested in Rollbit because, let me just double check, it is Rollbit. But I don't like that reason. Yes. It's only available at the moment on Uniswap via Ethereum. And I don't really like paying. I hate Ethereum. I think it is overpriced, it's slow, and its gas fees are just criminal, particularly when the network is busy. And, from doing my tax reports previous years and seeing how much I actually spent on gas fees trying to mess around on the likes of Uniswap and that, I'm just not interested in it. And I just think it's just going to erode profit for me if I ever try and get out of this once it's been successful. So I'm just going to pass on it. Yeah, it'd be nice, a bit of gambling in the space. I kind of completely get that, but I prefer it to be on a different network. Now I know there's things like Orca and that, but I've never heard of them, and volume's very low, so everything kind of has to be through there. So I'm just not gonna. Richard put, can you have a look at Sue? And I can't read that other one. Trias. Okay, right, last two then. Let's have a look at those. Well, I would say on Trias, I could be wrong, but we have got a double top feeding a bigger double top neckline there. Yeah, that neckline break's going to push it to here. So I just feel that that's the way that's going for me. So maybe around about 10.5. It's a bit further falling. Saving grace, what I will say is it is being held up on 50 EMA there, but a couple of double tops in the process of being paid out. Just think, yeah, that's where I'd be looking. Can't wait till next week to be proven wrong, and it's at $20. But Sura, I mean, this one is looking strong at the moment. It's had nice interactions, snaking up off the 50 EMA, the 5 and it's like the 10 and the 20 working very well as well. And yes, I've just talked about double tops, and people might argue that this is a double top forming here, but it hasn't. It's still going to get to the neckline. And even if it does, I can just see it coming back down and bouncing off this and continuing to climb up. But this one's looking very good. Nice, strong movement, consistent since everything started moving in October. So, healthy pullbacks as well. So yeah, it's looking good. Okay, I think that's probably done it. Under an hour and a half. So there we go. And no list developed from all of my talking. Yeah, just to recap on the main thing with the airdrops. I'm not anti airdrops at all. I just cautious that their overuse may lead to issues further down the line, similar to what we saw with ICOs and rebasing DAOs. And as I mentioned, they should have worked well. had they not been overused. So something to monitor, but I am still in them. I will still keep you all up to date when the airdrops finally play into fruition, and we'll see how much we make from it and whether or not it was worth that time. Because the one thing that we've got to remember is the opportunity cost. I'm keeping that money from buying other things. So it's always that in the back of my mind. Anyway, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Sorry I didn't make it to the cuddle on Saturday. I hear it was good. So looking forward to seeing the videos on that. Thursday, 2 trading pubs, one at 2 o'clock usual time, but just for an hour. And then we've got the 8 o'clock live, in which we've all got homework to have a look at the power law and what that means. I'm looking forward to diving into that tomorrow, seeing where it's at. Other than that, just to say thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all soon. Cheers now.